The 5 black SUVs rolled to a stop outside Marcus Wilson's crumbling rental home at exactly 7 a.m. Inside, Marcus was stretching a single packet of oatmeal between himself and his 2 children, wondering how they would make it through another day. He had given away his last $18 yesterday, money meant for gas to get to his job interview, to a stranger who looked even more desperate than he felt. Now, as men in suits approached his door, Marcus wondered if his act of kindness would cost him everything. If this story of unexpected kindness and its remarkable consequences touches your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more stories that restore faith in humanity. Your support helps us share these powerful moments that remind us all of the good still left in this world. Marcus Wilson hadn't always struggled. 3 years ago, he had a stable job as a mechanic, a modest but comfortable home, and a loving wife. They weren't wealthy, but they were happy. Their daughter Emma was 7, their son Liam just 4, and life felt full of promise despite their tight budget. Then came the accident. A rainy night, a truck that crossed the center line, and in an instant, Marcus lost Sarah, his high school sweetheart, the mother of his children, and the love of his life. The funeral expenses drained their meager savings. The grief made it impossible to focus at work. After missing too many shifts and making costly mistakes, Marcus lost his job at the garage. For months, he tried to hold things together. He picked up odd jobs, sold their second car, then their furniture. But medical bills from Sarah's final days kept arriving, and the rent kept coming due. They downsized to a small rental in a neighborhood that made Marcus uneasy, but it was all he could afford. "Daddy, is there more?" Emma asked, looking at her half-empty bowl of oatmeal. Marcus forced a smile. "Not today, sweetheart. But tomorrow will be better. I promise." He'd been making that promise for months now. Tomorrow would be better because he had a job interview at a new garage across town. The owner had seemed impressed with Marcus's experience over the phone. The pay wasn't great, but it was steady work with potential for advancement. After dropping the kids at school, they still qualified for free breakfast and lunch. Thank God, Marcus headed to the bus stop. His ancient Honda had finally given up the ghost 2 weeks ago, and he hadn't been able to afford the parts to fix it. He had exactly $18 in his wallet, just enough for bus fare to the interview and back, plus a small reserve for emergencies. That's when he saw the man. He was sitting on the bench at the bus stop, head in his hands. His clothes were clean but worn, and the small suitcase beside him had seen better days. What caught Marcus's attention, though, was the quiet desperation in the man's posture, a desperation Marcus recognized all too well. "You okay?" Marcus asked, taking a seat beside him. The man looked up, revealing red-rimmed eyes and a face etched with worry lines. "Not really," he admitted. "I came to the city for a job that fell through. Now I'm trying to get back home to my family, but I'm short on bus fare." "How much do you need?" Marcus asked, already knowing he couldn't spare anything. $18, the man said. "The next bus leaves in 20 minutes, and it's the last one today. If I miss it, I don't know what I'll do." Marcus felt the weight of the bills in his pocket. His interview was tomorrow. If he gave this man his money, he wouldn't be able to get there. The job opportunity would vanish. But looking at the stranger's face, Marcus saw himself, a man trying his best, knocked down by circumstances beyond his control. Before he could talk himself out of it, Marcus pulled out the bills and pressed them into the man's hand. "Take it," he said. "Get home to your family." The man stared at the money in disbelief. "But I've been where you are," Marcus said. "Someone helped me once. I'm just paying it forward." That wasn't entirely true. No one had helped Marcus when he needed it most. But he wanted to believe in a world where people did help each other, where kindness wasn't foolish. The man's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. My name's David. David Mercer. Marcus Wilson." They shook hands, and David insisted on taking Marcus's phone number. "I'll pay you back," he promised. Marcus just nodded, knowing he'd probably never hear from the man again. He walked home instead of taking the bus, using the long miles to figure out how he would explain to his children that tomorrow wouldn't be better after all. That night, after tucking Emma and Liam into bed with stories about their mother and promises that things would improve soon, Marcus sat at his kitchen table with a stack of past due notices. He'd have to call the garage in the morning and reschedule the interview, maybe borrow bus fare from his neighbor Mrs. Guzman, though she was nearly as broke as he was. He fell asleep at the table, exhausted from worry and the long walk home. The pounding on his door the next morning startled him awake. Through the window, he saw the line of black SUVs parked outside his house. His first thought was that they were repossession agents or maybe even police. Had his landlord finally lost patience and called the authorities? With trembling hands, Marcus opened the door to find 5 men in expensive suits standing on his porch. At their center stood a familiar face, David Mercer, though he looked different now. His clothes were impeccable, his posture confident. "Marcus," David said with a warm smile. "I told you I'd pay you back." Marcus stared in confusion. "I don't understand." David gestured to the men around him. "These are my associates. I'm the CEO of Mercer Enterprises. We develop affordable housing communities across the country." Marcus's mind reeled. The desperate man at the bus stop was a CEO? "I wasn't lying about needing to get home," David continued. "I was in town incognito, researching neighborhoods for our next development. I like to experience places as an ordinary person, not as someone with wealth and influence. It helps me understand what communities truly need." He paused, his expression growing serious. "I lost my wallet earlier that day, picked, I think. When you gave me your last $18, I was genuinely stranded. What you didn't know was that those $18 meant I could call my driver from a payphone and get back to my hotel. You quite literally saved me from spending the night on the street." One of the men stepped forward, handing David a folder. "We did some research on you, Marcus. Hope you don't mind. I know about Sarah, about your job, about everything you've been through. And I know that despite having almost nothing yourself, you gave everything to help a stranger." Marcus felt his cheeks burn with embarrassment. Anyone would have done the same. David shook his head. "No, they wouldn't. I've been testing that theory for years. Most people walk by. Some offer directions or advice. A few might spare some change. But to give your last dollar when you have children depending on you? That's extraordinary." He opened the folder and pulled out a set of keys. "These are yours. We own a property management company as part of our enterprise. There's a 3-bedroom house in a good school district that just became available. It's yours, rent-free, for as long as you need it." Marcus stared at the keys, unable to comprehend what was happening. "I can't accept that." "You can and you will," David insisted. "But that's not all. I spoke with the owner of Wilson's Automotive. Apparently, you had an interview scheduled there today?" Marcus nodded, still dazed. "He's a friend of mine. The job is yours if you want it, but I have another offer." David handed him a business card. "We need someone with mechanical skills for maintenance at our properties, and more importantly, we need people with integrity. The starting salary is twice what Wilson's was offering, plus benefits and flexible hours so you can be there for your kids." Tears welled in Marcus's eyes. "Why are you doing this?" David placed a hand on his shoulder. "Because $18 and a moment of kindness showed me the kind of man you are. In my business, character matters more than credentials. You can't teach someone to be good, Marcus. And you are good, despite everything life has thrown at you." One of the other men stepped forward with another folder. "This contains information about a college fund we've established for Emma and Liam. It's fully funded through undergraduate degrees. "And this," he said, handing over an envelope, "is to cover any outstanding medical bills from your wife's treatment." Marcus couldn't hold back his tears any longer. Behind him, he heard small footsteps as Emma and Liam appeared, rubbing sleep from their eyes. "Daddy?" Emma asked. "Why are you crying? Who are these people?" Marcus knelt down, gathering his children in his arms. "These are friends," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "And they've just helped make tomorrow better, just like I promised." David smiled at the children. "Your dad is a hero," he told them. "He helped me when no one else would, even though it meant making things harder for himself. That's what real courage looks like." Over the next few hours, as the details were explained and papers were signed, Marcus learned that David Mercer had built his fortune from nothing. Orphaned at 12, he had lived on the streets before a kind stranger had given him shelter and a chance. He had promised himself that if he ever succeeded, he would pay that kindness forward. By noon, Marcus and his children were being driven to their new home. It wasn't a mansion, but it was clean, safe, and in a neighborhood with good schools and parks nearby. The refrigerator was stocked with food, the closets held new clothes in everyone's sizes, and on the kitchen table sat a framed photograph of Sarah that Marcus had been forced to sell months ago. Somehow, David's team had tracked it down. "This isn't charity," David told him as they stood in the living room of the new house. "This is an investment in a good man and his family. All I ask is that when you're back on your feet, you find someone else who needs help and do what you can for them." 6 months later, Marcus was thriving in his new position. The flexible hours meant he could be home when Emma and Liam returned from school. The salary covered their needs with enough left over to start a small savings account. For the first time since Sarah's death, Marcus felt hope for the future. On the anniversary of their meeting, Marcus invited David to dinner at their home. As they sat around the table, Emma and Liam chattering excitedly about school and friends, David leaned over to Marcus. "Was it worth it?" he asked quietly. "Giving away your last $18? Marcus looked around at his children, healthy and happy, at the home that had become their sanctuary, and at the photograph of Sarah watching over them all. "It was the best investment I ever made," he replied. What neither of them knew was that Emma was listening. Years later, as a college student, she would remember this conversation and be inspired to start a non-profit organization called The Last 18, dedicated to helping single parents in crisis. The organization would eventually help thousands of families across the country, creating a ripple effect of kindness that stretched far beyond that chance meeting at a bus stop. And it all began because a man with nothing chose to give everything to a stranger in need. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change lives in ways we never imagine. Marcus gave away his last $18 without expectation of return, simply because it was the right thing to do. His story reminds us that true wealth isn't measured in dollars but in the capacity to care for others even when we're struggling ourselves. If this story touched your heart, please remember to like and subscribe. Your support helps us continue sharing these powerful reminders that even in our darkest moments, kindness matters. One small act can change everything, not just for the person you help, but for countless others touched by the ripples of that single moment of compassion.